Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shtotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhaya Charanaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shtotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All were similar varies Hare Krishna. All were similar varies Hare Krishna. All were similar varies Hare Krishna. All were Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All were Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Radha Govinda Goswami Namine Namaste Prabhupada Devam Gauravani Pacharnane Vishesha Shunyavadi Gramya Jananishtarine. Hare Krishna. So today we will speak about chapter 5 of the Madhya Lila of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. I'm hoping today we'll get through the whole chapter. Because it's pretty straightforward. So this chapter, it's beginning. So Mahaprabhu is now continuing his travels. He's left the darshan of Kshirachora Gopinath, and he is now continuing his travels, about to enter into Jagannath Puri. At the very end, at the Dandabhanga pastimes, will be just prior to his entry. And then we will hear a bit about Nilachale Mahaprabhu, and then we will begin the South India tour, which is very ecstatic. So, Mahaprabhu, he is continuing on, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he begins this chapter again. Every chapter he begins with a very sweet Mangalacharan, defining the mood and content of each chapter. This one begins, he says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahmanya Deva, who appeared as Shakshi Gopal to benefit a Brahman. Walking on his own legs, he traveled for 100 days through the country. Thus his activities are wonderful. So walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party finally arrived at Yajapur on the river of Vaitarani. There he saw the temple of Varahadev and offered his obeisances unto him. In the temple of Varahadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in the temple. Afterwards, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Cuttack to see the temple of the witness Gopal. When he saw the deity of Gopal, he was very much pleased by his beauty. An interesting note, we don't find Shakshi Gopal in Cuttack today. The temple has been relocated, but at this time it was in Cuttack. So then, Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, being overwhelmed. He offered many prayers to Gopal. That night, he stayed in the temple, and he heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. Previously, when Nityananda Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he had also come to see Shakshi Gopal at Cuttack. At that time, Nityananda Prabhu had heard the story of Shakshi Gopal from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. Then, formerly at Vidyanagar in South India, there were two Brahmins who had made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. They went to Gaya, Kashi, then Prayag, and then finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests and at last came to the town of Vrindavan. In the village of Panchakroshi, Vrindavan, at the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopal was performed. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Yamuna, such as Keshi Ghat and Kalia Ghat, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. The beauty of that Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. So these two Brahmins, one was very young, one was very old. And it's a very famous pastime, but it's also a very sweet one. So one, of course, being old, he had many children. And the young one, being very young, was unmarried. And because of this, the old one, he was very happy. Traveling together, this young Brahmin, he had served him as if he was his own spiritual master or his own father. He had served him so sweetly, so nicely, that the older Brahmin thought, I should give something pleasing to you. I should give you a very nice donation or a very nice mercy. And so he said, I will not be ungrateful. I promise to give you my daughter in charity. And then the younger Brahmin said, this is not proper. I'm a simple Brahmin. I'm not from a rich Brahminical family like you are. I am not so opulent. There's not so much appeal in me. I am without a decent education and have no wealth. I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmins, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. And so, with this, the older Brahmin, he says, my dear boy, do not doubt me. I will give you my daughter in charity. I've already decided this. And the younger Brahmin, he says, look, maybe you are satisfied. Maybe you are happy to give me your daughter. But I know that you're not the only member of your family, and you're not the only person who has a say. And I doubt that that all your friends and relatives will consent to this. Just consider the story of Queen Rukmini and her father Bhishmaka. King Bhishmaka wanted to give his daughter Rukmini in charity to Krishna, but Rukmi, the eldest son, objected. Therefore, he could not carry out his decision. And the elderly Brahmin, he said, why do I care for all these other people's opinions? My daughter is my own property. Not such a popular sentiment these days, but he says, my daughter is my own property. If I choose to give my property to someone, who has the power to stop me? My dear boy, I will give my daughter to you in charity, and I will neglect the position of all others. Don't doubt me in this regard. Just accept my proposal. And then the younger Brahmin, he has objected. Again, his mood was not in the idea of getting anything in reward. And therefore, realizing out of his wisdom, even though he said he was not properly educated, the very fact that he was serving that older Brahmin purely as an act of service to Krishna, to please Krishna, shows that his insight and wisdom was very high, even in lack of an aristocratic birth or apparent education. And with that insight and wisdom, he thought, well, he foresaw the problems that we are about to read that elderly Brahmin finds himself in. And so he gives all these objections, not because he did not want to marry the daughter, but again, because of his wisdom, he wanted to save, in that service attitude, that elderly Brahmin from all of these problems and complications. Playing the best that he could, unfortunately, or rather fortunately, because it allows us to see this wonderful pastime and allows this very qualified Brahmin, who's at the highest level of Brahminical understanding, to receive a proper wife. Still, the elderly Brahmin, he rejects all of this reasoning, and so the younger Brahmin, in order, again, for his insight, in order to maximize that elderly Brahmin to be able to follow through with his word, he says, if that is so, then swear before this beautiful Gopal deity we are in front of. And saying like this, the elderly Brahmin went before Gopal and said, my dear Lord, please witness that I have given my daughter to this boy. And the younger Brahmin addressed the deity and said, my dear Lord, you are my witness. I shall call for you to testify if it is necessary later on. And as we know, it will be necessary later on. After these talks, the two Brahmins, they went home. And as usual, the younger Brahmin, he accompanied the elder Brahmin and continued to render wonderful service. So this wonderful relationship continued. And when they returned home, the elder Brahmin, he began to be very anxious. He was now thinking actually that younger Brahmin, he had a point or two, and he was telling me not to give him my daughter. And he said, now, it's very easy to say something when in the heat of the moment, when there's no other consideration. But now he's actually having to tell his friends and family, his wife, his other children, and his actual daughter, that he is going to marry her to this young, unaristocratic Brahmin. And with that thought, his anxiety begins to kick in. But he thinks, well, I have taken this oath before Gopal, and this Brahmin, he is very sweet. So I will still give my daughter in marriage. And he calls a meeting for all of his relatives. And he gives a narration of what had happened. And they all, what did they narrate with? They all responded and commented specifically with a great amount of disappointment. In Bengali, ha ha kar. They were ha ha. We hear ha ha Prabhu Korodoy. It's like an exclamation of what's going on. This is not a very, very sweet position to be in. And so they were unanimously speaking, all together. They were saying, if you offer your daughter to a degraded family, your aristocracy will be lost. When people hear of this, they will make jokes and laugh at you. And the elderly Brahmin, he said, I've made an oath. And forget about making an oath. I've made an oath to Gopal. And forget about making an oath to Gopal. I've made this oath to Gopal in the holy Dham. Of all of the oaths that cannot be broken, this is one of them. So whatever I do, I must give my daughter in charity. And then they said, okay, and do it. And if you do it, it is a classic blackmail sort of thing. Fine, do it, go ahead. Give your daughter away. But we will cut off any connection with you. We will reject your association. And not only will we reject your association, we will reject the association of these bodies which are associated with you, and we will take poison and we will die. That is what we will do. So go ahead and do as you like, and naturally we will behave accordingly. And the elderly Brahmin, he was explaining, he said, you don't understand. If I do not give my daughter to the young Brahmin, he will call Sri Gopalji as a witness. Thus he will take my daughter by force, and in that case my religious principles will become meaningless. And then his son, who is a great antagonist in this, and very much embodying the atheistic tendencies that unfortunately have overtaken so many Brahminical families. And here we are seeing that even in this case, even in this Brahminical family, we are seeing one of the first few of the Dvija Bandhus creeping in, the friends of the twice-born, because how can somebody with such a mentality truly be considered twice-born? And he says the deity may be a witness, but he is in a distant country. How can he come to bear witness against you? Why are you so anxious over this? You do not have to flatly deny that you spoke such a thing. There is no need to make a false statement. Simply say that you do not remember what you said. If you simply say, I do not remember, I shall take care of the rest. By argument, I shall defeat the young Brahmin. And so, Prabhupada, he says in the purport that this young Brahmin was an atheist. He is very expert in dealing with pounds, shillings, and pence, but he is fool number one. Consequently, he did not believe in the spiritual position of the deity, nor did he have any faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, as a typical idol worshipper, he considered the form of the Lord to be made of stone or wood. Thus, he assured his father that the witness was only a stone deity and was not capable of speaking. Besides that, he assured his father that the deity was situated far away and consequently could not come to bear witness. In essence, he was saying, have no anxiety. You do not have to lie directly, but you should speak like a diplomat, like King Yudhishthira when he spoke to Dronacharya. Ashvatthama hata iti gajaha. Following this principle, simply say that you do not remember anything and are completely unaware of the statement given by the young Brahmin. If you make the background like that, I shall know how to fill in the argument and defeat him by word jugglery. Thus I shall save you from having to give your daughter to him. In this way, our aristocracy will be saved. You have nothing to worry about. Of course, this example is not very appropriate. The instruction to speak as King Yudhishthira was done in service to Krishna. Was done in order to fulfill Krishna's desire. It was cheating for Krishna. What the younger Brahmin is, what the son of the elder Brahmin is proposing is to cheat Krishna. They're the complete opposite categories. When Yudhishthira spoke, he was speaking to cheat for Krishna, and therefore his behavior was perfect. But this behavior is to cheat Krishna, which is, I don't think I need to say, but is less than perfect. And so he's saying again, Prabhupada is making the point that he will defeat him in word jugglery. Because again, that younger Brahmin, he may have not have had the great education, he may not be from such an aristocratic background, but still, because of the strength of his devotion, because of the strength of his realization of the true nature of Brahminical culture, there would be no defeat in actual debate, which is why he must resort to word jugglery. And further on, this atheistic mindset is common, even today. Only a level above this, only a level above the atheistic tendency is the level of the Kanishtadhikari. Of course, the distance between these levels is immense. A Kanishtadhikari is worshipable by everyone. However, the Kanishtadhikari, he understands that Krishna, he is present in the temple, and elsewhere he is not. I go and Krishna is only present here in the temple. This is one of the features of the Kanishta Adhikari's mindset. In fact, the most Kanishta of Kanishtas will say he is only present in my temple. In other people's temples he is not present, but only in my temple of my sect there is Krishna and nowhere else. And so many people, they will have this mindset. They will do so many, and it is a good thing. They will come to the temple. I mean, many people, unfortunately, will do many sinful things even within the domains of a temple. But at least some people, they will come to a temple, and they will not do sinful things. They'll avoid them. But the moment they leave, they think, oh, well, Krishna, he is Sarvagya. Sarva doesn't mean everywhere, it means within the boundary of the temple, where the murti can see. This is how they redefine Sarva. But the moment I leave the temple, then Krishna doesn't know. Of course, they won't say such a thing, but in their hearts, they believe like this. So many sinful things they'll do outside the temple, and they'll think, that's fine, I can get away with it. Krishna can't see me, he's only God. He can't see me. He's only the super soul in my heart. He's only present everywhere as the super soul. So I can go around and do anything. So even though we might mock, when reading this thing, we might mock this young Brahmin, this son of the elderly Brahmin, thinking, what a fool, saying something like, the Gopal deity is over there, he will not come over here. There are two mistakes there. But the underlying one, and the one that we commonly share, is that even though we intellectually may believe in the omnipresence and all the great omnis, the omniscience, the omnipresence, and the omnipotency of Bhagavan, even though we might intellectually believe them, sometimes the behavior of a person who claims to believe in them doesn't really reflect that. And so they will commit the same mistake, a tiny bit higher up. At least they will accept that Krishna is present in the temple. But in fact, even this son is accepting. He was saying that Gopal can't reach, not because Gopal isn't in the temple, but because Gopal cannot leave the temple. So it is the same mindset. I will go out and do so many things. I will break all the regulative principles. I will sin like there's no tomorrow, and then I'll come to the temple. But I can't sin here because Krishna's here. But Krishna is present everywhere. You can't run away from him. People will say Chitragupta sees everything, but really Chitragupta in a sense is the least of your worries. Krishna, he is perceiving all things. And therefore, this mindset, it is unfortunately a more common symptom of a lack of devotional understanding than we would think. This might be such an exaggerated, we might think this is an exaggerated case, but it is unfortunately very common. And the other mistake he has made is just the classic one we've discussed already in regards to Madhavendra Puri's pastimes, that this idea that the deity is just wood. Krishna, I worship Krishna through the deity. Krishna is inside the deity. Or maybe Krishna just has nothing to do with the deity if you're at the lowest of low levels. But Krishna is the deity. So then when the elderly Brahmin heard this, his mind became very much agitated. Feeling helpless, he simply turned his attention to the lotus feet of Gopal. And he prayed, my dear Gopal, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, and therefore I request you to please protect my religious principle from disturbance and at the same time save my kinsman from dying. The next day, the elderly Brahmin was thinking deeply about this matter when the young Brahmin came to his house. And so the young Brahmin, he said, when's the wedding happening? I'm meant to get married now. And the elderly Brahmin, he remained silent and he said nothing. And the young Brahmin, he was confused and he said, what is the conclusion? What is happening? And immediately that atheistic son came out and with a stick to beat the younger Brahmin. And the son said, "You are most degraded. You want to marry my sister, just like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon?" Seeing the stick in the hand of the son, the younger Brahmin fled. However, the younger Brahmin, he called together all the people of the village to come together, to come to a conclusion. What is happening here? And bringing them all, he brought them to the meeting place. This was on the following day. And the younger Brahmin, he began to speak, and he said, "This gentleman has promised to hand over his daughter to me, yet now he does not follow his promise. Please ask him about his behavior." And all the people said, "Well, you've given your word. You're a Brahmin. Why do you not fulfill this word?" And then the elderly Brahmin, he thought, "Okay, now I will go along. I will go along with the plan." And he said, "Oh, I am an elderly man. Sometimes I say things, sometimes I do not. I do not remember giving the word like this. I do not remember saying it the way that this young Brahmin is describing. I don't remember making such a promise." And the elderly Brahmin's son, being of his very nature, he took the opportunity to juggle some words. Becoming very impudent, he stood before the assembly and spoke as follows. "You see, my father, he is from a very aristocratic family. He is very rich. He has got lots of opulence and very many things. And this rogue, this Brahmin, he just sort of saw all of this, and he was like a gold digger. He came and he went to take advantage of my innocent, poor, elderly father. There was no one besides this man with my father. Instead of acknowledging, opening up to the fact that this young Brahmin was of such a good character that single-handedly he took care of this elderly man, he twisted this. We see this is often the point of criticism, of attacks. If people have malice, and unfortunately they often do, they will even take the sweetest behaviors people have and twist them. Sometimes it can be disturbing for people to hear criticism, but this reflects only the malicious lens of the person speaking criticisms rather than the actual person being criticized. Actually, Indra Prabhu, speaking about a complete reverse of this. Right now, this Brahmin, he is seeing a good quality and he's trying to find a way to twist it into a negative thing. Indra Prabhu, he would say that if one sees even a negative quality, if one notices a negative quality in another devotee, one should see that negative quality and one should think, Krishna has shown me this negative quality. He has opened my eyes to it. Krishna, of course, he gives remembrance and forgetfulness. He gives all these things. So Krishna has opened my eyes to this fault so that I may be aware that it exists and I may look for it inside myself. Krishna has not shown it to me so that I may correct this devotee. Krishna has shown it to me to remind me that this fault exists and I should try to correct it within myself. That is the correct attitude of the proper Vaishnava, of the proper spiritualist. And right here we are seeing the embodiment of the opposite end of the spectrum. He is seeing a good quality and he is twisting it to something very, very bad. And he said, he gave my father an intoxicant known as dhutura to eat. And then this rogue made my father mad. Having taken all of my father's money, the rogue claimed that it was taken by a thief, and now he is going one step further and trying to take my father's daughter. All of you assembled here are gentlemen. Please judge whether it is befitting to offer this poor Brahmin my father's daughter. And hearing all these statements, all the people, they became rather doubtful. They thought it quite possible, because wealth can attract so many bad qualities and can cause a person to lose their attraction for religious qualities. And again here we see why it's so important to avoid hearing controversy for any sake. Of course, in this sense, the young Brahmin required a jury. But in general, we can find that unfortunately it is so very easy to believe criticism, even when in this case it is beyond absurdity. Even just by hearing it, maybe they did not become believing it, but they began to become shook in the belief of the qualities of this wonderful Brahmin. Just by hearing it, they began to have doubts. It is said that, in fact, if one is hearing aparad, if one is hearing prajalpa, we know in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam, it is defined. In the Vedic conception, sound is not like we say in Western science, it is just an isolated sort of vibration in the air. In the Vedic conception, sound requires a speaker and a listener. Unless sound is heard, it is not sound. In the same way, aparad and prajalpa, when it is heard by someone and tolerated by someone, then they are allowing that aparad to manifest. It is not that they are passive, it is not that they are neutral, but they are complicit in the speaking of that aparad. They have enabled it. They have enabled the prajalpa, they have enabled the aparad, and that is why they too will receive the negative effects of it. And we see here that these people, they are suffering the reaction, unfortunately, of hearing this blasphemy of an innocent and pious Brahmin. So the young Brahmin, he said, please understand that just to gain a victory, this man is lying. And he explained again the proper purport, exactly what happened. And he said, I told him, don't do this because exactly this will happen. And yet he still swore. He still swore to the deity that I will do this. And because of that, the elderly Brahmin, he said, okay, the elderly Brahmin, he was still of some good value. He was not like his son. And he could not continue on with the charade. And he said, this was the truth. I do remember what I've said. Now that he has spoken it, this is what I said. And if Gopal personally comes here to serve as a witness so that I can prove it to all of you, I shall surely give my daughter to the young Brahmin. And the elderly Brahmin's son immediately confirmed this, saying, yes, this is very nice. And one may wonder, well, why? Why would that son who has tried to lie, tried to get out of this whole thing, why would he agree to this thing? But we must not forget that son is an atheist. And he is thinking, yeah, right. as if Krishna can do that. The atheist has no acknowledgement in actuality, in their day-to-day life, about the realistic nature of Bhagavan. The father was very happy because he thought Gopal is so merciful, he will surely go along with this. And the son was very happy because thinking, yeah, right, the deity is just going to stay there like it always does. Sometimes it's said that a very good barometer to see how much is the jnana that I'm hearing, the knowledge of spiritual truth, how much is it becoming vijnana, how much is it becoming realization? And one of the great metrics to do this is to think, if I had not ever heard anything about Krishna, how would I be living my life? And if the life I'm living now is very similar to how I would have been living my life had I not heard this, then it's very likely that it's not even jnana, it's just cliches and words rattling around in your head that are having no application. And this atheistic son is an example of that. Yes, he might be able to repeat some things about the murti, but practically he is living and behaving exactly as if he had never heard of Krishna altogether. That is the metric. If there is no difference, or if the only difference is that every once in a while on a Sunday, I might turn up to see my friends and family and get some free food, well, practically you would have done that if you had heard of Krishna or not. Actually, if one is hearing about Krishna, these topics are the topics which redefine and at one point allow one to quit the material world. If one hears about these things, then the impact it should have on one's life shouldn't just even impact it slightly. It should completely transform it. And so if there seems to be a resemblance in actuality, in essence, about a life that one can imagine had one not come into association with the devotees, then it is likely they have not taken on board or realized any of the knowledge that has been given to them. So, continuing like this, the young, they keep on going. And so they write up a nice little, in ink, they all wrote up a statement saying this is the case. And so the young Brahmin, he went off and he traveled. He traveled very nicely to Vrindavan. And going in front of the Gopal deity, he said, "My Lord, you are the protector of Brahminical culture and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your great mercy by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmins. My dear Lord, I'm not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I'm simply thinking that the Brahmin has broken his promise and that is giving me great pain." And Lord Krishna, he said, my dear Brahmin, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me. I shall certainly appear there, and at that time I shall protect the honor of both you Brahmins by bearing witness to the promise." The young Brahmin replied, "My dear sir, even if you appear there as the four-handed Vishnu, none of these people will believe in your words." This is also the nature of people. So many people will say, "Oh, I don't see any good reason to believe in God." You can point out so many evidences. The whole world is constantly, if anything, from the sophistication of nature to the fact that the world itself even exists without any seeming reason. You can go on. I don't want to tangent too much because I'm actually in anxiety to reach chapter 8 of Rai Ramananda Sambad, so I'm trying to go through a little faster. But there's so many different proofs, and every time the atheistic person, he'll come up with some stupid reason. He'll come up with some silly reason. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this. That is not satisfactory. That is not satisfactory. Always they will keep on changing the bar again and again and again and again. It would be sufficient if Vishnu himself, who is, of course, in one sense, an expansion out from Gopal, but in another sense, non-different. If Vishnu himself appeared, that should have settled the debate. But this is the nature of the atheistic tendency, of the atheistic mind. No, this isn't good enough. I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. As if Krishna has the great onus, as if it's Krishna's responsibility to prove to the atheist what is so obvious to actually anyone. As if Krishna is responsible. It is Krishna's responsibility to prove that he exists to some atheist who is rejecting him. As if the atheist is so important, so valuable, that he can demand the Supreme Personality of Godhead come down right here and prove that he exists. Actually, Krishna has given more than sufficient reason, more than sufficient evidence. But only they're just fools. And what can you do? They're making fools of themselves publicly. In one sense, we should feel bad for them. So only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people. And Krishna said, "I've never heard of a deity walking from one place to another." And the Brahmin replied, "That is true, but how is it that you are speaking to me now, although you are a deity? You are not a statue. You are directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Now, for the sake of the old Brahmin, you can do something you have never done before." And then Gopal, he says, "Okay, I will do this." And so the Lord said, "Do not try to see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. You will know that I am walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and follow behind you." And so, like this, he went. And going along like this, he traveled and traveled. And then finally, he reached his own country. And then he went and he told everyone, he said, "I have a special witness for my case." I have a witness that I think will conclusively prove it to everyone. And this witness has arrived. And so, thinking like this, the Brahmin, he turned to look back and he saw Gopal smiling. Because now he thought, actually, I want Gopal to stay still. I don't want him to keep following me. I need everyone to see him. I don't want him to keep moving around. And the Lord told the Brahmin, "Now you can go home. I shall stay here and shall not leave." And the young Brahmin went and informed everyone. And bringing them in, he told them all, "Take a look, have darshan." And they were all very, very pleased to have darshan of the Supreme Lord. And the elderly Brahmin, he became very pleased and he fell full dandavat pranams before Gopal. And in the presence of all the townspeople, Gopal bore witness that the elderly Brahmin had offered his daughter in charity to the young Brahmin. And after the marriage ceremony was performed, the Lord informed both Brahmins, "You two Brahmins are my eternal servants, birth after birth." So like this, he said, "Now I have become very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both. You can ask for a benediction." And thus they begged, "Please remain here so that people all over the world will know how merciful you are to your servants." Lord Gopal stayed and the two Brahmins engaged in his service. After hearing of the incident, many people from different countries began to see Gopal. So, like this, the marriage was done. And this pastime, we were hearing Madhavendra Puri's pastimes, very much so the level of commitment that the devotee has to Krishna. Madhavendra Puri, with so much commitment, he traveled here and there and went through a lot of discomfort. So he went through all these lengths just to serve his Gopal. And in this pastime here, we know about the lengths that Gopal will go to serve his devotee. It is a reciprocal thing. Again and again, there's so many texts in Bhagavad Gita that so much personify the essence of bhakti. But none more so captures the bhakti of Krishna for his devotee than ye yatham mam prapadyante. That same surrender, that same level of service that the devotee is willing to offer to Gopal, reciprocally Gopal is more than willing and more than desirous to offer to his devotee. And that is evidenced here. That is why these two pastimes, they go very sweetly in order from each other. And so the king, he heard the story and he was very, very happy. And he constructed a nice temple, and that Gopal became very famous, known as Shakshi Gopal, the witness Gopal. And the Shakshi Gopal, he stayed in Vidyanagar and accepted service for a very, very long time. Later there was a fight, and this country was conquered by King Purushottama Dev of Orissa. And this king was victorious over Vidyanagar. And he took possession of his throne, the Manikya Singhasan, which was bedecked with many jewels. And then, at this point, he was a great devotee, however. And he was of very Aryan qualities, very civilized. And he begged at the lotus feet of Gopal, even though I've taken all of these things in my conquest, the thing I want most is that your lotus feet would take step in my kingdom. And begging like this, Gopal, this Gopal who is already embodying the lengths that Gopal will go to please his devotee, he walked already from Vrindavan all the way to South India in Vidyanagar. Now, what is walking then up to Orissa? It is a much shorter distance. And so, like this, that Gopal, he accepted the prayer, and then the king took the Gopal deity and went back to Cuttack. And taking this deity, he was very worshipped. He was worshipped very opulently with various kinds of ornaments. And the queen, especially, she took up a very devotional and sweet role with this Gopal. And she thought, and she had this very valuable pearl that she wanted to offer to this Gopal deity. And she thought, if there was a hole in his nose, I could put that in like a little nose ring. And the queen offered her obeisance to Gopal, and she kept on thinking about it, and that was her meditation. And like this, Gopal, he appeared in her dreams. And he said, during my childhood, my mother made a hole in my nose, and with great endeavor set a pearl there. That hole is still there, and you can use it to set the pearl you desired to give me. After doing this, the queen explained to her husband, and they both went, and then finally they saw that hole in the nose. And then they set the pearl there, and being very pleased, they held a great festival. And now he is residing in Cuttack. Mahaprabhu, hearing this, he became very ecstatic. He became very ecstatic, very happy, and he was very pleased to hear all these things. And all the devotees taking darshan, they saw that both Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gopal were brilliantly effulgent and had eyes like lotuses. They were both absorbed in ecstasy, and both their faces resembled full moons, because they realized that Gopal and Mahaprabhu, they are non-different. It is sometimes, of course, Mahaprabhu is described as an avatar. And in a sense, he is an avatar. Avatar means to cross over. He is crossing over from the spiritual realm. He is Krishna crossing over from the spiritual domain into our Mayak realm. But in another sense, he is not an avatar in the sense that Ramchandra is, or Nrsimhadev is. He is that very avatari himself. It is not that Krishna takes another avatar. It is that same Krishna, that same personality who ran around in Vrindavan. That same Krishna is now here again. So there is, even though Ramchandra and Nrsimhadev, they are non-different to Gopal, to a higher degree, Mahaprabhu, he is non-different to Gopal. He is that exact same personality. And so seeing like this, they were all very ecstatic. And they kept on going. And so, Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur, he somewhat interestingly, he says, the rest of the journey through Bhubaneswar, it is described by Vrindavan Das Thakur. So he says, I will not describe the remaining things, which of course has been the mood of Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur throughout the entirety of Caitanya Caritamrita. But he does describe one pastime, and that is the pastime we're getting up to now, Danda Bhanga. We'll have to start it and conclude it tomorrow. I was hoping we'd finish it tonight, but we'll have to conclude it at the beginning of tomorrow. But it's a very interesting pastime. And it's very interesting especially that Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur feels the need to describe this one, even though he does not describe the other pastimes. The other pastimes, he is sufficient and happy with letting the reader go to Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Mangal in order to hear the description of it. And we will read that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Kamalapur, he took his bath in Bharginadi river and left his sannyas staff in the hands of Lord Nityananda. And Prabhupada, in his purport, he describes that in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he gives further descriptions about the temples and all that Mahaprabhu stayed at. And this actually, I think, is one of the features and one of the reasons why Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur mentions this pastime in comparison to all the others. One is that it's very significant, it has very deep purports. But another is actually in Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is described not so clearly the location of where this pastime happened. It is described actually as happening in closer to the previous chapter when Mahaprabhu was closer to Chirachora Gopinath. When Mahaprabhu was closer there, that is where Vrindavandas Thakur describes the Dandabhanga pastimes. However, according to the overwhelming majority of all the other great acharyas, including, of course, our Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and other acharyas who came later, but also ones who came before, like Vikaranapur, Lochandas Thakur, actually it is described to have happened more within the region of Kamalapur. And so, it's very likely that one of the reasons, among many, why Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur decides to discuss this pastime now is because he is trying to give clarity as to the location of where this pastime happened. Now there is not so much a debate, because actually the location where the remnants of Mahaprabhu's danda, just to spoil what happens in the next few verses, Nityananda Prabhu breaks it into three parts. The remnants, there is a temple that has been established there by disciples of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And it's a very sweet temple. It's a very sweet ISKCON project there. But so now there is not so much confusion. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur seems to be clarifying a point here. And that is why he says, all of the other pastimes I'm not mentioning, but this one I am. And so, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Kapoteshwar. Nityananda Prabhu, who was keeping his sannyas staff in custody, broke the staff in three parts and threw it into the river Bharginadi. Later, this river became known as Dandabhanga Nadi. And so this temple, and we'll conclude with this, this temple, Kapoteshwar, is a Shiva temple. Actually, Mahaprabhu, right now, I was describing at the end of chapter 3 when we were discussing how Mahaprabhu is finally leaving out for his sannyas. Just before he enters Jagannath Puri Dham, he's taking darshan of very many Shiva temples. We will actually hear, if we go through the purports, and again, I think it's out of the scope of this Caitanya Caritamrita class, but if you read the purports and if you read the various acharyas' descriptions, he visits so many different Shiva temples, virtually all of them in a place that is predominated by Shiva worship. This is reflecting the fact that Jagannath Puri Dham is Vrindavan. And not just an entrance into Vrindavan, especially the heart of Vrindavan, the Ras Lila, who is protecting, who is guarding, who is the guardian of the Rasastali, the mandal where the Ras Lila is happening. We know it is Shiva, after being kicked out himself for not entering it properly. But he is the guardian of it. Again, this is reflecting that deeper mood. Before entering into Jagannath Puri, he is taking permission from Shiva, who is that guardian of that great and rasic area of the Dham. So, Kapoteshwar, though, is an interesting deity. He's named like this because Kapata means like a bird. A Kapata is a bird. So the pastime that happened was actually once Parvati and Shiva, they were having some sweet pastimes, water sports. They're having some water sports pastimes. They were playing, just sweet marital fun. And while they were doing these pastimes, they were just having fun, playing around. And then Ramchandra, along with Lakshman and Sitama, he walked in and he saw them all. And filled with great shame, they thought, oh, this is embarrassing, So they took the form of birds and they flew away. And on that location, there was established a Shiva temple, and that is why it is called Kapoteshwar. It is the Ishwar who is Kapata, who is like a bird. So like this, Mahaprabhu, he was taking darshan, and Nityananda Prabhu, he broke the danda into 3 pieces. And after seeing the temple of Jagannath from a distant place, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to become ecstatic. I think also some of us will start to become ecstatic. We've been waiting so long for Mahaprabhu to enter into Jagannath Puri. Now he's entering in. And after offering obeisances to the temple, he danced in ecstasy. And everyone was ecstatically dancing, and Mahaprabhu was laughing, crying, and dancing. And the temple, although the temple was only 6 miles away, to him the distance seemed thousands of miles. Again, in his eagerness. If one is looking forward to something, the day before seems further away than the week before. In the same way, Mahaprabhu is experiencing like this. And walking like that, he returned back to external consciousness at the place known as Ataranala, which is a bridge with 18 arches about to enter into Jagannath Puri. By the way, and I will have to stop now, but we'll continue later, these 2 points tend to reflect again further Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur's insistence about the location of the Dandabhanga pastime. Because if this bridge of the 18 arches, and furthermore the ability to have darshan of Jagannath Puri and having the darshan of the temple is not possible at Kshira Chora Gopinath Mandir. There is no bridge there, and you cannot see the temple like that. It is not so close. However, at the location that Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur is clarifying was the location, all these things are possible. And returning to external consciousness, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, Nityananda Prabhu, please return my staff. And then we'll continue Nityananda Prabhu's response to that and the further discussion and the further issue of what happens as Mahaprabhu hears that his staff has been broken to 3 pieces. We'll hear about that tomorrow, and then we'll hear about the purport of that pastime, and then we'll begin to hear about the liberation of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya in Puri. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur ki jai, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimate Radha Govinda Goswanti Namane Namaste Prabhavati Devam Guruvani Pracharine Vishesha Srinivati Kramne Chanda Nishtarine.